Ethan Davies was pushed toward a dazzling bright light as the never-ending black tube finally spat him out. A roaring filled his ears like a freight train passing inches away, and he forced his eyes shut against the glare. Then a loud voice sounded as if it were coming straight from the sky. "A new beginning, Ethan. Don't waste it." He was violently shocked back into the boundaries of his own skin, as if he had been defibrillated. How long had he lived in that weird limbo? Days, weeks, a strange numbness that had almost become pleasant. The return to bodily sensation was awkward and strange. His eyelids were heavy and unresponsive as he struggled to open them. The roaring gradually died down, giving way to definite sounds that could be heard through the fog. Distant hospital PA announcements, machine beeps and hisses, and finally a woman's voice that was painfully familiar and laced with a tune that pulled at his shattered memory. His cherished wife, Tiffany. God, Tiffany. He wanted to see her and feel the warmth of her embrace more than anything else, even more than the act of breathing. He had to let her know he was back. He was still alive. He was still with her. He opened a slit of his eyes with great effort. He was the only person in the sterile room, connected to life by a network of tubes and wires that snaked from flashing, buzzing devices that surrounded his bed. From there, her voice drifted, low but chillingly clear, through the slightly open corridor door. She must be outside right now. So, Tiffany said in a polished, almost professional tone. "What's the timeline on transferring the assets into my name?" Ethan's thoughts whirled. Resources? What was she discussing? And to whom was she speaking? "Look, he's not going to make it, okay?" With a hint of irritation, Tiffany went on. "He's almost going around in circles. If that, the doctors give him days." Ethan heard the roaring again, along with a dizzying sensation of fear and disorientation. This isn't possible. This is not how Tiffany would speak. "Isn't there a faster way than waiting for probate?" she said. "Something quicker to get control." As cold and sharp as an ice pick to the heart, the terrible reality struck. She was discussing him and his possessions. His devoted wife was eagerly awaiting his passing so she could profit. His throat developed a thick, sickening lump, yet swallowing felt unfeasible. His mouth felt as parched as the sand of the desert. He longed for a drop of water. However, he was unable to move, speak, or call for assistance. Captured. "And when are you coming over, baby?" Ethan felt sick to his stomach as Tiffany's voice abruptly changed and began to ooze with honeyed sweetness. Her tone had changed to one of playfulness and intimacy, with a noticeable smile. "I miss you, too," she purred. "God, I can't wait. Finally, we won't have to sneak around." Always terrified he'd walk in or call. The world tilted. Sneak around a lover while he lay here, fighting for his life. The image of his perfect marriage, his devoted wife, shattered into a million poisoned shards. Ethan's resolve hardened instantly. No, he wouldn't reveal himself. Not yet. Let her think he was still lost in the darkness. Let her expose the full extent of her treachery. Footsteps approached in the hallway, slowing near the door. Tiffany's voice stopped them. "Doctor," she asked, injecting a pathetic trembling note into her voice, a caricature of grief. Ethan could practically picture the crocodile tears welling up. "Doctor, please tell me, how much longer does he have to suffer?" There was a pause, then another female voice, younger, crisper, with an edge of professional reproach. "We always hope for the best, Mrs. Davies. Please have faith." Ethan recognized that voice. It was the doctor who'd checked on him earlier, the one with kind eyes. "Now, if you'll excuse me," the doctor continued, her tone brooking no argument. "This is a restricted area. We'll notify you immediately of any changes in his condition. Please wait in the designated family area." "Of course, doctor," Tiffany replied, her voice saccharine again. "Just please call me the second anything happens. Anything at all." The sharp, familiar click-clack of her expensive heels retreated down the corridor. A moment later, The door pushed open wider, and Tiffany herself entered the room, her face a mask of strained sorrow that didn't quite reach her eyes. She moved towards the monitors beside his bed, her painted fingernails tapping impatiently as she fiddled with some buttons, probably pretending to check his vitals. "Trying to bury me alive? Are you?" she muttered under her breath, the venom unmistakable now that she thought herself unheard. "Stubborn bastard. Wouldn't be surprised if he pulled through just to spite me. Damn him." Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline, a primal need to react, to shout, to expose her right there. He tried to force a sound, anything, but his tongue felt thick and glued to the roof of his mouth. All that escaped was a faint dry croak. He managed to flutter his eyelids again, just a fraction. Tiffany froze, then slowly turned towards the bed, her eyes narrowing, and then a slow, chilling smile spread across her perfectly made-up face. "Well, well, well," she whispered almost triumphantly. "Look who decided to rejoin the party." Tiffany's smile wasn't one of relief or joy. It was calculating, predatory. "So you heard all that, did you?" she murmured, leaning closer, her perfume cloying in the sterile air. "Thought you could play possum forever?" But before Ethan could even try to form a response, the doctor he'd heard earlier, Dr. Olivia Vance, swept back into the room, followed by a team of nurses. Tiffany instantly straightened up, her mask of concerned wife snapping back into place. "Oh, doctor, I think there was a flicker," she exclaimed breathlessly. Dr. Vance ignored Tiffany, her sharp eyes immediately assessing Ethan. The next minutes were a blur of activity, flashing pen lights, blood pressure cuffs, monitors being adjusted, hushed medical jargon exchanged over his prone body. They drew blood, checked reflexes, hooked up new sensors. Tiffany hovered nearby, trying to look involved, but Dr. Vance expertly maneuvered her team, effectively boxing her out. Finally, the flurry subsided. "His vitals are stabilizing slightly, Mrs. Davies," Dr. Vance said coolly. "But he remains in critical condition. We need to continue monitoring closely. Please allow us to do our work." With a dismissive nod, she ushered the team and a reluctant Tiffany out of the room. Only a young, kind-faced nurse remained behind. She gently approached Ethan's bed, holding a small cup and a piece of gauze soaked in water. "You must be terribly thirsty," she whispered, dabbing the cool moisture against his cracked lips. He parted them slightly, instinctively, trying to draw the life-giving liquid in, sucking weakly at the gauze. "Easy now," the nurse soothed. "Doctor says no drinking just yet, I'm afraid. Only this for now. You're doing great, Mr. Davies. You're a real fighter." Fight her? Yes, he had to fight. Fight this weakness. Fight the despair. Fight her. With monumental effort, dredging up strength he didn't know he possessed, Ethan focused all his will. "Doc," he rasped, the sound raw, painful. The nurse's eyes widened. She leaned closer. Now he managed, another agonizing syllable. She nodded quickly and darted out of the room. Seconds later, Dr. Vance was back at his bedside, her expression concerned, but calm. "Mr. Davies, Ethan, can you hear me?" He blinked slowly, focusing on her face. "Don't tell wife," he forced out, each word a Herculean struggle. "She mustn't know awake," he paused, gathering breath. "Please, I'll pay anything. Please." Dr. Vance didn't hesitate. A look of understanding mixed with a flicker of indignation crossed her features. "Don't you worry about a thing, Ethan," she said firmly, her voice low and reassuring. "Not a word. You need rest, not stress. We understand completely. Your secret is safe with us." As she and the nurse quietly exited, Ethan heard Dr. Vance murmur just outside the door, her voice tight with contempt. "Can you believe that woman waiting by the door like a vulture, just hoping for bad news so she can grab the inheritance? Disgusting." The nurse sighed. "Makes you sick, doesn't it? If it were my husband, I'd be praying nonstop." Some people, their voices faded, leaving Ethan alone with the hum of the machines and the bitter poison of his wife's betrayal. Days bled into one another in the sterile quiet of the ICU, marked only by the changing shifts of nurses and the rhythmic beeping of monitors. Ethan slowly, painstakingly began to reclaim his body. The feeding tube eventually came out, replaced by sips of water, then broth, then soft foods. Physical therapy started, agonizing sessions, learning to move limbs that felt like foreign objects. Through it all, Dr. Olivia Vance was a constant, steady presence. She wasn't assigned to his case exclusively, working shifts, but she always made time to stop by, even when she wasn't officially on his floor. Their conversations evolved beyond medical updates. She'd sit by his bedside during quiet moments, sharing snippets of hospital gossip, complaining about cafeteria food, or just offering a comforting silence. "How's our miracle man doing today?" she asked one afternoon, pulling up a chair after reviewing his chart. Ethan managed a weak smile. "Still kicking. Thanks to you." Olivia waved a dismissive hand, though a faint blush colored her cheeks. "We just provide the tune-up. You're the one running the engine, Ethan." He studied her face, the intelligence in her eyes, the genuine warmth in her smile. She was everything Tiffany pretended to be. "Heard anything from her?" Ethan asked, the question tasting like ash. Olivia shook her head. "She calls the nurses' station daily, asking for updates. Always the same routine, dripping concern, asking if there's any change. We stick to the script." Critical, but stable. A grim silence settled between them. Tiffany's words echoed in Ethan's mind. "Finally, we won't have to sneak around." How long had it been going on? How could he have been so blind? He'd worshipped Tiffany, showered her with everything. The penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park, the unlimited credit cards, the European vacations. He built his tech empire from scratch, working brutal hours, all for her, for them, for the family he thought they were building. And this was his reward. Her eagerness to see him dead. Her secret lover waiting in the wings. The betrayal clawed at him, a raw, festering wound. Olivia seemed to sense his turmoil. "Ethan," she said gently, leaning forward. "You're getting stronger every day. Physically, you're making incredible progress. We're hoping to move you out of ICU soon, maybe tomorrow, to a regular room." Her expression turned serious. "But you need to think about the next steps. We can't keep your recovery a secret indefinitely once you're on a general floor. She has rights as your wife." "I know," Ethan sighed, the weight of the inevitable confrontation settling heavily on him. "I understand. Just not yet. I'm not ready for that fight." He looked out the window at the indifferent city skyline. He needed a plan. He needed to face her, but on his terms. The thought of seeing her fake sympathy, knowing the venomous truth beneath, made him physically ill. Tiffany couldn't stand the waiting anymore. Days had passed since she'd seen that flicker of awareness in Ethan's eyes, and the hospital staff remained infuriatingly tight-lipped, critical, but stable. What the hell did that even mean? She needed certainty. She needed to know it was over so she could finally move on, finalize things with Chad, and step into the life she deserved, the life Ethan's fortune would provide. Fed up, she stormed back into St. Jude's, her heels clicking an angry rhythm on the polished floors, making a beeline for the ICU nurse's station. She spotted an older nurse, someone she hadn't dealt with before, looking slightly overwhelmed behind the counter. "Perfect. Excuse me, nurse," Tiffany began, summoning her most convincing worried wife expression, dabbing at a dry eye with a tissue. "I need an update on my husband, Ethan Davies. Room 304. I'm just so worried. Is he still suffering?" The nurse, whose name tag read Brenda, peered at her over her reading glasses and began tapping slowly at a computer keyboard. "Davies, Ethan. Let's see," she mumbled, scrolling through screens. Yes, Mr. Davies." She looked up, her expression neutral. "Well, dear, he's no longer with us." Tiffany's breath hitched. Her heart gave a massive, triumphant leap. No longer with us. It was done. He was gone. She fought desperately to keep the ecstatic grin from splitting her face, quickly rearranging her features into a mask of devastation. She pressed the tissue harder to her eye, letting out a choked sob. Oh, God, no," she whispered, turning away abruptly before the nurse could see the poorly concealed joy dancing in her eyes. "Thank you," she managed, her voice thick with fake emotion, already spinning on her heel and rushing towards the elevators, eager to escape before anyone saw through her act. "In this unit," Brenda finished, looking up from the screen again, slightly puzzled by the wife's rapid departure. "He was transferred to the progressive care unit on the 5th floor this morning, doing much better, actually." But Tiffany was already gone, halfway down the corridor, fumbling for her phone. She practically skipped into the elevator, hitting the lobby button. The moment the door slid shut, she let out a whoop of pure elation. "Yes," she hissed, dialing Chad's number. "Baby, you are not going to believe the good news." Unbeknownst to her, Ethan, bundled in blankets in a wheelchair and being pushed by an orderly towards his new room on the 5th floor, happened to glance down the long corridor towards the elevators just as Tiffany emerged. Her face was alight with unconcealed glee as she talked animatedly into her phone. The image burned itself into his brain, his grieving widow, radiant with happiness at the news of his demise. Fury, cold and absolute, flooded his veins. The sight of Tiffany's joyous face, convinced of his death, shattered the last vestiges of Ethan's hesitation. The carefully constructed dam of patience burst, unleashing a torrent of white-hot rage. As the orderly wheeled him into his new, less intensive room, Ethan's mind was made up. "Stop," he commanded, his voice stronger now, rough but firm. The orderly paused. "Get Dr. Maxwell in here now." Dr. Maxwell, the physician now overseeing his recovery on the general floor, arrived looking puzzled. "Mr. Davies, settling in okay?" "I'm checking out," Ethan stated flatly. Dr. Maxwell blinked. "Excuse me?" "Ethan, you were transferred from the intensive care unit less than an hour ago. You're nowhere near ready for discharge. We need to monitor." "I don't care." Ethan cut him off, his eyes blazing. "There's something I have to do, something that can't wait. I'll sign whatever waivers you need. Against medical advice, the whole damn thing, but I am leaving this hospital right now. If you try to stop me, I'll walk out if I have to crawl." Seeing the fierce determination in Ethan's eyes and likely wanting to avoid a scene, Dr. Maxwell reluctantly agreed, muttering about liability and arranging the necessary paperwork. "I'll be back," Ethan promised grimly as he signed the forms with a shaky hand. "Just as soon as I take care of business." Minutes later, dressed in clothes hastily procured by a bewildered nurse, Ethan was in a taxi, the city lights blurring past as he directed the driver towards his Upper East Side penthouse. Adrenaline surged through him, masking the pain and weakness. He let himself into the sprawling apartment, the silence amplifying the pounding in his ears. Then he heard voices from the living room. Tiffany's laughter, high-pitched and giddy, mingled with a man's deeper chuckle. Ethan strode towards the sound, his jaw clenched. He stopped dead in the doorway. There, standing in the middle of his living room, wearing nothing but a pair of designer boxer shorts, was a smug-looking man gesturing expansively. It was Chad, presumably, and Tiffany, glowing, draped in a silk robe, was hanging on his arm. "And this whole fireplace monstrosity," Chad was saying, waving a hand dismissively. "We rip it out. Put in a state-of-the-art sound system right there. Killer acoustics." "Oh, Chad, darling, your taste is impeccable," Tiffany cooed. "Did I interrupt something?" Ethan's voice cut through the air like a razor blade. Tiffany froze, her hand flying to her mouth, her face drained of all color, transforming into a mask of utter disbelief and horror. She stared at him as if seeing a ghost risen from the grave, which in a way she was. Chad just looked annoyed at the interruption, then confused. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded. Tiffany finally found her voice, a strangled whisper. Ethan, but how?" "Shut up, Tiffany," Ethan snarled, the command laced with ice. He ignored Chad completely, his gaze locked on his wife's terrified face. The sight of her, caught red-handed with her lover, planning to dismantle his home while believing him dead, fueled a cold, righteous fury. "You," he pointed a trembling finger at Chad. "And you," his eyes drilled into Tiffany, "have exactly 5 minutes to grab your essential belongings and get out of my apartment. My security team is on their way up. If you are not gone when they arrive, they have instructions to remove you forcibly." Panic flared in Tiffany's eyes. The potential loss of everything, the money, the status, the lifestyle, hit her full force. Tears, this time perhaps tinged with genuine fear, sprang forth. "Ethan, baby, no. Please listen," she sobbed, rushing towards him, attempting to play the contrite wife. "I thought the hospital said. I thought you were gone." I was devastated. Grief makes you do crazy things." Ethan recoiled as if she were toxic. "Crazy things, like immediately shacking up with your boy toy and planning renovations before my body was even cold?" He scoffed, his lip curling in disgust. "Get away from me." He saw Chad shifting nervously, likely realizing the situation was far more serious than he'd anticipated. "You heard me," Ethan snapped at him. "Get dressed and get out." Just then, the elevator dinged, and 2 large, impassive men in suits stepped into the foyer. Ethan's personal security detail. "Escort these 2 individuals off the premises," Ethan instructed calmly. "Ensure they take nothing that doesn't belong to them." Tiffany shrieked, a torrent of accusations and pleas pouring from her as the guards firmly took her arm. "You bastard, Ethan. How could you do this to me? After everything, I loved you." Chad wisely offered no resistance, scrambling to pull on his clothes. As the guards half-dragged, half-walked the sputtering Tiffany and a sullen Chad towards the door, Ethan's mind flashed back to Olivia's words. "If it were my husband, I'd be praying nonstop." He felt a surge of gratitude for the doctor's integrity, her kindness. If it hadn't been for her, who knows what might have happened? Would Tiffany have tried to bribe someone to hasten the end? The thought was sickening. Her final curses echoed down the hallway as the apartment door slammed shut. Silence descended. Ethan called a 24-hour locksmith service, instructing them to change every lock immediately. He then told his security head to keep a watch on the building until further notice. Exhausted but strangely exhilarated, he called another taxi. He had a promise to keep. Back in his hospital room, the adrenaline crash hit hard. The divorce proceedings started swiftly. As expected, Tiffany's lawyers demanded half of everything acquired during the marriage. Ethan's lawyer countered, presenting evidence of a massive recent business expansion loan taken out solely in Ethan's name, but under community property laws, potentially considered marital debt. Faced with the prospect of inheriting millions in debt instead of assets, Tiffany quickly signed away all claims in exchange for a clean break, spitting venomous parting words that Ethan barely registered. She had ceased to exist for him. The weeks of recovery passed in a haze of physical therapy, quiet contemplation, and surprisingly pleasant conversations with Dr. Olivia Vance. She continued to check in on him, ostensibly professionally, but their chats often veered into personal territory. They talked about books, travel, dreams deferred, the simple absurdity of life. Her presence was a balm to his bruised soul, a stark contrast to the toxic memory of Tiffany. After his final discharge, armed with a clean bill of health and a finalized divorce decree, Ethan found himself adrift. The penthouse felt too large, too silent, haunted by echoes of betrayal. He focused on rebuilding his business, but something was missing. He realized with a jolt that he missed Olivia. He missed her sharp wit, her compassion, her steadying presence. He hadn't even properly thanked her for everything, for saving his life. Yes, but also for guarding his secret, for showing him basic human decency when he needed it most. One sunny afternoon, impulse overriding hesitation, Ethan bought the largest, most vibrant bouquet of sunflowers he could find and drove back to St. Jude's. He timed his arrival, hoping to catch the end of her shift. The nurse at the station on Olivia's usual floor smiled knowingly when he asked for Dr. Vance. "She's still here, Mr. Davies, but she just got out of a very long, very difficult surgery. She might be a few minutes." Ethan nodded, his heart doing a nervous little two-step. "I'll wait." He found an unoccupied bench in the corridor, the bright yellow flowers almost offensively cheerful in the muted hospital environment. Nearly 2 hours passed. Finally, the doors to the surgical wing swung open and Olivia emerged. She looked utterly drained. Her shoulders slumped, scrubs slightly rumpled, her eyes shadowed with fatigue. But beneath it, a spark of fierce satisfaction. She saw him and stopped, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. She walked over slowly and sank onto the bench beside him. "Rough one?" Ethan asked gently. She nodded, running a hand through her hair. "Incredibly tough. Touch and go for hours." A small, weary smile touched her lips. "But we pulled him through. Patience stable." A wave of relief washed over her face, palpable even in her exhaustion. That's amazing, Olivia." Then she noticed the explosion of yellow in his lap. "Are those for me?" she asked, her eyes widening slightly. Ethan felt himself flush, suddenly feeling like an awkward teenager. "Oh, yeah, sorry." He awkwardly thrust the bouquet towards her. "I realized I never properly thanked you for, well, everything, and I seem to have completely lost my knack for talking to women." He took a deep breath. "Look, Olivia, I was wondering, maybe, if you're not too exhausted, would you maybe like to go on a date sometime? Dinner, a walk. No pressure. If not, I totally understand." Olivia's tired face broke into a genuine, radiant smile, chasing away the shadows. "Yes," she said, her voice soft but clear. "I'd love that, Ethan." She took the flowers, burying her nose in their sunny fragrance for a moment. "My shift officially ends in 30 minutes. A walk might be the perfect rehabilitation after that marathon surgery." She looked at him, her eyes sparkling. "And maybe for you too. Fresh air does wonders, right?" He smiled back, a real smile, feeling a lightness spread through his chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with recovery and everything to do with hope. Maybe that voice in the light had been right, a fresh start, and this time he wouldn't waste it.